Hello, I'm Jace Donnelly, and today is going to be a bit of a ramble. It's going to be a ramble about three main topics that are all related. First off, I'll start talking about the global state of affairs. There's going to be kind of three buckets to that: AI, the global economy, and war, and how war is changing. The second kind of main theme is the United States of America being at a precipice. I have three buckets for that as well: ICE, no checks and balances, the ultra wealthy and billionaires, and then my final theme is concealed carry. I'll be talking with regards to that about how the world is a bit fragile. We have systems on systems, personal protection, and hobby. Again, might not seem like it, but these three themes, hopefully by the end of the video, I will be able to explain, maybe even persuade you on some of my opinions. So, getting into it, global state of affairs, AI. I could make my own a full video just about AI, and many have, and many will continue to do so. I saw a video by John Green, I believe. It was about an hour long, so if you have the time for it, really good video on the dangers and concerns of AI. We could talk about it all day, but some quick highlights. Horrible for the environment, extremely high energy usage, extreme pollution, really bad for natural clean water. Here in Washington State, where I live, we have some of the best drinking water. And data centers, big, huge, hyperscale data centers aren't good for that. As well as kind of getting into the job market. When I was growing up, it was easy to get an entry-level job, whether that was working at McDonald's or you're a cashier, whatever. These days, for example, it's a bit harder, I'd say, at least anecdotally from folks I've talked to who are younger than me. A lot of those jobs are sort of going away. They're being eliminated one by one. With self-checkout being a good example, when I was growing up, a lot of my friends, they were cashiers. I myself, I was a landscaper. I'm sure that there's plenty of landscaping that still needs done, so I don't think that has gone away. I don't think AI is going to take over landscaping anytime soon. But I do think that AI is currently, it is an emerging technology, and it is in control by a very select few wealthy elites, tech billionaires. And AI is going to be it's not a term that's going to go away, for better or for worse. I think it's not going to go away for worse. At the company that I work at a very large aerospace company. You can probably already tell which one. And our executives at the company are extremely insistent that everyone knows AI, uses AI, and increases their efficiency and work output with AI. Now, in a lot of the cases that make sense to a certain extent. For example, I have been using AI for help with little programming jobs. I myself am not a programmer. I'm a professional writer by trade, but even writers must code sometimes in the world that we live in. And I typically use AI for taking vast amounts of data and simplifying it into key takeaways or other sorts of large, something that would take me several hours to read everything. I can usually get a good first draft if I can put something through AI. It doesn't work for everything. There are plenty of writing that I do that does not involve AI, but AI does have its uses. Anyone that tells you that AI is pure and simple, straight up, always evil, bad, and problematic, probably doesn't know what they're talking about. AI does have its use cases. when you go into the world of general AI, that's a bit different, and no one really knows what that even would look like yet. All the tech billionaires are scrambling to be the first one to get general AI, and yet none of them are articulating what that future would look like. They're not articulating a world wherein the average person is happy and healthy. They're articulating a world where the world that they are moving towards with AI is one in which people are dependent on the ease of their product, their AI products, in the same way that many people are dependent on social media for entertainment right now, and they're on their phones 24/7. AI they hope for it to pervade every corner of life, and for it to be able to gather data from every corner of life, and for that to be able to continue to help them refine their systems and make Amazon be able to tailor, be able to basically read your mind based on all your past purchases and your ethnicity and your location and the people that you might associate with, and figure out exactly what to sell you at the right time. And that's just one example, but essentially the world that they're trying to build isn't one where people are happy, healthy, have a strong sense of community. That is a future in which they might not have all the power that they currently have, right? So AI, is it good, is it bad? It's, right now, both. And most people don't really know what it is. But it is something that is going to change the world in the next 5 to 10 years. Do I think that there will be a breakthrough in general AI in the next 5 years? No. In the next 10 years? If we keep investing billions of dollars, sure. But when I say we in investing, I want to dive into that for just a moment, and then I'll move on to the next topic. Companies, like AI companies, or companies that make parts for data centers, etc., we're in a bubble. We are in an AI bubble right now. I'm not the first one to say this. I certainly am not going to be the last. It is by no means a secret that we are in a classic bubble, an economic bubble regarding AI. Companies keep investing, like, hey, this one company invests in this company, if that company invests in this company, which invests in that, and it's this circle of just investing in each other, making deals. It doesn't actually signal any economic health for us. So if I could sum up my thoughts on AI, I think it is going to be transformative. I think that a lot of busy work is going to go away as AI can start handling that. I think it will be much simpler in the future to get quick answers. But AI also threatens our entire ecosystem of information. The internet, people who make information on the internet can't do it for free full time. If you want high quality videos, entertainment, information, any of that stuff that you rely on or enjoy on the internet, that typically comes from someone whose full-time job is as a reporter or a content creator or something. And they are able to afford to live via either subscriptions, whether you pay for YouTube Premium or this or that, or you support their Patreon directly, which is a minority, I believe, of how most of them make their money. Typically, how people make their money if you're a reporter for any outlet or content creator is ads. It's ads. Now, what does AI do right now? It prevents you from needing to click, and go into different web pages and, do a little bit of research here, a little bit of there. AI, boom, answer at the top of the page, links. Oh, you want to dive deeper? Ask me any more questions. You can do it all right there. I mean, I don't like ads as much as the next guy, right? Whatever. But it's going to transform our system of systems, and I can't predict how that'll look like, but AI is not going away. It's going to do massive harm, and it's going to do massive good. And the only way that for us to try to have it do more good than harm is if we rein in these companies right now. We have to be active. Currently, the loudest voices are coming from the extreme minority, the 0.1%, right? The people with the money, they're making decisions right now, and they're talking to your state representatives, and they're talking to your federal representatives, and they're making backroom deals. And your drinking water, your public land, the beauty, your electricity bill, all these things are going to be affected. Unless we organize and stand up and speak up. Moving on to global economy and currency. I really do need to make another video, its own video on this as well, but short version being that the US petrodollar is diminishing in its appeal. What I mean by that is the US, short version, I'm not going to get into the details right now. Again, maybe I'll make a full-length video on this. The US is alienating its allies. We are pissing off everyone we've ever been friends with, and we are certainly pissing off our enemies at a faster pace than ever before. Whether it's talking about invading Greenland, kidnapping foreign leaders, assassinating foreign leaders, or just the rhetoric we use and the kind of the bullying tactics we use in some of the global bodies. You know, we act like we're untouchable, and I assure you there is no empire on the planet in the history of the planet that is untouchable. And every empire has its rapid growth and its inevitable decline, and it's really dependent on your reputation as a country and its citizens. Like, can we trust you? And many other factors that will decide how long an empire can last. And right now, the U.S. is not making friends. We are not making any friends on the global stage, unless you count Israel, maybe. And what that is going to do is it's already happening. It's already happening that countries are moving away from the U.S. dollar as the global reserve, if they can. If they can afford to do it, they are. And if they can't afford to do it, they are trying to de-risk by also maybe purchasing Chinese yuan or other currencies or Bitcoin or whatever. So, global economy, we are currently at a trajectory where in the next 10 to 16 years, I would say, if we keep going where we're going as a country right now, and if we keep just getting up to nonsense on the global stage and being difficult to work with on the global stage with our allies, I don't think that the U.S. is going to be the global reserve currency for much longer. And I think other tokenization, Bitcoin, other sorts of currencies are going to become king. And the ramifications of that for you, if you are indeed an American, United States of America, is that just be careful how much money you have in the stock market. You might want, of course, historically speaking, you want to be in the stock market. You want to have as much money as you can in the stock market. That's how the ruling elite, the wealthy billionaires, keep making their money and keep avoiding taxes, right? But who knows? Just saying. If you're on the U.S. stock exchange and the U.S. dollar starts becoming devalued and no one believes that we can honor our commitments or pay off our vast quantities of debt, it's a fragile system that we live in. Just saying. Moving on, war is changing. I am perhaps not the right person to go to for all the information on this subject because I don't have a military background and I have not been for any active war zones. But so I will keep this one pretty quick. But war is changing. It's changing in one main way so far that I've seen, is that it is now incredibly cheap to build an explosive drone and fly it and blow something up. What that means is, in the past, if you wanted to inflict damage at a distance, you would need carriers, you would need air to protect. You need to control the air if you want to control the ocean. Control the airspace. In order to control the airspace, you need to make sure you have anti-air systems. In order to protect those anti-air systems, you need tanks, systems on systems on systems, right? In order to inflict damage at a distance upon your adversary. that is no longer so much the case, and we will continue to see cartels, small nation states, small groups, to having like undue power or danger, posing vast amounts of danger or threat to large governments with systems on systems on systems, just with simple drones. So that is something to pay attention to. In Ukraine, they're being used to no small effect. And in Ukraine, we're seeing the possibility of a vast empire. I would consider Russia to still, to a certain extent, be an empire. And you don't have to. The empire doesn't have to be derogatorily either. It's just a definition. It's a noun for a thing, right? So it's, but basically, Russia's being bled dry from a much smaller country, and I mean, wow, right? That's impressive. People thought that the war would be over in weeks. What are we on, year 4 or something right now? It's just impressive, and war is changing right now. So, those were the 3 main things that I wanted to discuss for global state of affairs. AI, war is changing, global economy. These 3 things are interrelated. As soon as you can put AI in a drone, what is that even? What is going to be the ramifications of that? Now you have suicidal drones? What's going on, right? Global economy. AI is, of course, going to be transformational for the economy, whether we like it or not. Whether it's good for you, the average person, or horrible and awful, and you end up losing your job. AI is going to be a part of that, right? So these 3 things: war, global economy, AI. They're not happening in a vacuum. So just pay attention to that. So moving on to the next kind of large theme, the United States of America being on a precipice. I mean, if you're not living under a rock, then you know what has been happening in our country with regards to ICE. I'm going to name 2 names that are not breaking news either, but Rene Good, Alex Preddy. Rene Good, all the information that we know at this point is that these agents planned to do this, and they knew who she was. They knew that she was a mom and that she was a legal observer, and they knew all this information about her because they had been tracking her and building up information and wanted to sort of scare her away from doing her job. She was making their work difficult, or however they saw it, right? And we also know that after the fact of what happened, there were text messages where they were boasting. So, long story short, because you likely already know this story, she was killed. She was assassinated by federal agents while trying to... They basically told her, get out of here, right? And she said, I'm going. She backs up her car, which is something you would normally do when there's people in front of you, and you're trying to leave the scene, and they're not detaining you, but they're sort of holding you there. They're surrounding you. They all have guns, and you verbally say, I'm leaving. And at that point, if the officers didn't want her to leave, which it seemed like they did, I've seen multiple angles of the video footage, they would say, no, you stay right here, and they go, you stop right now. But that's not what happened. She backed up kind of peacefully and starts driving off. An agent steps up in front, already had his hand on his gun, I believe he's already holding it, and opened fire and killed her, killed a mother, who wasn't armed, who wasn't trying to run them over. Another American citizen, Alex Preddy, nurse, supported veterans, has said prayers and honored veterans who have passed, and saves lives, exercising his First Amendment right, and Second Amendment right? Fully concealed carry permit. 3 or 4 agents push him to the ground, get on him, and one of them takes a gun from him. Now, that is actually, legality of that is interesting, because it's not like Alex was trying to fight agents or anything. He was there at the protest. He was there. He helped defend this woman that was getting pushed around a little bit. But he didn't have his gun was on his 6 o'clock, which is small back. That's not a super offensive position to have a gun, right? If you wanted an offensive position, you might have appendix carry or something like that. This guy was just having a gun for his own self-defense, exercising his First Amendment rights, gets pushed down. Officer takes the gun from him, and then once he is on the ground, 3 or 4 different agents pushing on him, his weapon already taken away. Again, legal for him to have that weapon. Pop, pop, pop. Meg dumped, assassinated right there in cold blood. And then, of course, the federal propaganda, the propaganda from our government being that he was in the wrong and the agents were correct, which is an interesting thing for them to say because, of course they're going to say that it benefits their interest. Apologies there. Had to reset my SIM card. But it's just interesting because not so long ago, Republicans were defending Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'm not going to go into that. But if you know anything about Kyle Rittenhouse, he was not concealed carrying. He went up to a protest with a full assault rifle, AR-15, and was not convicted. Not guilty, according to the courts. So how do you square that? That's an interesting tension, isn't it? So anyway, long story short, the government is kidnapping American citizens and torturing them. Correct. Now, I'm not talking, the kind of torture you might see in a Call of Duty video game. At least I hope not. But from the torture we've seen is American citizens or those who are showing up to court on their last day where they've never broken a law and they've always paid their taxes and they're showing up to court and they're going to become an American citizen, kidnapped and thrown in a cold cell. For what? When Trump started this, he said he's going to get rid of all the criminals. That's not what's happening. He has a quota to meet. An arbitrary quota he set for himself. And our country is not hiring the best and brightest. From these 2 names alone that I've named, Alex and Renee, these are goons. These are not qualified law enforcement officials who who uphold the Constitution and uphold our laws. If that was the case, these 2 would be alive, and many others. So, we live right now in sort of a police state. And I don't mean that as in like we should, I've never been a defund the police person. I believe in police reform. I think many ex and current police officers would agree with me that there are some bad people, some bad eggs. And those people ruin it for everyone else because you get a video of a bad cop and now everyone thinks that every cop is bad, right? That's not great. There needs to be some kind of standards. We need to uphold this nation's laws with integrity. And that is not what's happening right now at all. So that's the first one. Second one, under the category of the United States being on a precipice, we have no checks and balances. We are unilaterally, from the executive branch, the unit is going to war with the Middle East for the upteenth time. Trump has even made videos in the past saying, Obama is a coward and to save face and to get votes, he's going to go to war with Iran. Well, guess what he's doing right now? I mean, the Supreme Court just said that it was the tariffs that Trump put in place were illegal, and Trump responded with, fuck you, 10% global tariffs on the whole world, right? And then he's also claimed that that money will be in the pockets of the everyday American. First of all, that's not true. We know that's not true. He's a scam artist. But we just have no checks and balances. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, impotent. Alex Preddy, assassinated for exercising his First and Second Amendment rights by federal agents. Where's the investigation? Again, no checks and balances on our enforcement agents, on officers, right? So we have no checks and balances for any part of the system. The executive branch has all the power. He can do whatever he wants. He can appoint the Supreme Court justices. Gerrymandering, just in the last year, I think both California in response to what Texas was doing, now they're both gerrymandering, and we're just allowing that to happen. It's funny when California has the population of like 3 or 5 Republican states combined, and yet they have the same number of senators, right? That's funny how that works, but even that isn't gerrymandering. What's happening in our country is worse than, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Just drawing random squiggles on a line and saying, that's our zone, I guess they'll give us all the votes in the world that we need. It's just ridiculous. Our system is broken. It's flailing around. And that takes me to the ultra wealthy and billionaires. Billionaires are parasites. There's no way around it. These are not the best and brightest people. They didn't get to where they are because they deserved it or because they worked the hardest. You know, the American dream, that's not a thing anymore. These are people who were either born into wealth or know how to play the game. The game being how to do as little beneficial work to society as possible while maximizing gains and dodging taxes. There is no reason why anyone should be defending billionaires unless they themselves are a billionaire and they have their own biases there, or if they benefit from billionaires and doing sleazy backroom deals with them. If you're an everyday American and you think that Elon Musk is some kind of savior, then I can't help you. You've lost. You're lost in the sauce, buddy. And this video isn't going to help you. I can't change your mind. You're too far gone. But at some point, we need, if we want our country to be off the precipice and not devolve into either a civil war or a complete police state or a complete technocratic union run by the ultra-wealthy elite tech bros, and with no checks and balances, and the only rule of law depends on who you know and what you can offer. If we want to avoid any of these possible futures or all of them combined, we have to focus on what matters. And I'll make a separate video on the policies that I think would help with regards to that. But holy shit, is our country facing it? We're walking off a cliff right now. And again, I've mentioned systems on systems. The global economy, the United States economy, all these fragile systems that global shocks or things like COVID or other kind of stuff, tariffs, all these individual things, the AI bubble, any number of things could put us into complete shock and disarray and violence. And now, admittedly, none of these things are super likely right now, but taken as a whole, I mean, there are so many things that can affect these super sensitive systems. And just with the way that things are right now, I have no faith in our current government to do what's right and to uphold law and to do so morally and to the standards of our Constitution. We see that every day and every week, laws being broken and nothing being done about it. We have a felon for a president, folks. Lastly, concealed carry. So, I just touched upon how there are we live in a fragile world, we have fragile systems, and these systems are systems on systems on systems. One block falls over and the Jenga tower all collapses, right? Again, I'm not a doomsday prepper, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but I'm real. I want to be honest with you that the world that we live in today is not guaranteed. The history of our species is one of empires rising, empires falling, bloody social or ethnic conflicts, great powers, Roman Empire, and then the Persians, and then Chinese, all these dynasties and empires and kingdoms and serfs, and then it collapses, and then you have your Library of Alexandria or your Forgotten Age, and the world that we live in today is quite fragile, and people don't know how to farm. Let's say we lose electricity somehow, solar eclipse, or it just becomes untenable, we pollute our environment too much, whatever. Do you have like a plow and like an ox or something? Like, do you know how to grow enough food for yourself? Do you think that If our supply chains get disrupted, farmers are going to just continue delivering their food to grocery stores that like can't pay or won't pay, or they can't even get the trucks to load it up, or some kind of crop blight occurs or whatever. Like, I mean, any number of things, folks. Really, I mean, it's a non-0% chance. Do I think it's likely? Not super. I hope not. I would like to think that it's not likely. Maybe it's only like a 1%. Maybe it's only a 5%. I don't know the odds. I don't think anyone does. But are you ready in case something goes wrong? Do you have like a week's worth of drinking water at least, if not 2 weeks? I mean, I live on the Cascadia subduction zone, and it's not likely to cause any problems in my lifetime. But if it does, and there's a massive earthquake, and first responders can't get to me for weeks, and there's no water, all the pipes are broken, and there's rubble, or there's chaos in the streets, or there's a civil war, there's any number of things. Do I have drinking water? Do I have some food? Do I have a plan? Can I defend myself? That's one reason. Another is just protection. Can I defend myself? When some high school dropout Nazi sympathizer who's joined ICE recently comes into my city and is trying to cause trouble and doesn't respect my constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of anyone in their way, and doesn't mind getting their hands dirty to punish people who are in their way, even if it's against the law, because they know that the law is not going to be upheld, as it has not been recently. What's going to stop that person? What's going to stop that armed thug from ending my life, or ending life of someone I care about, or throwing me in some jail cell for no reason? Right? I'm a good American citizen. I pay my taxes, I vote, I do public cleanup, I care about the environment, I donate. I'm an everyday middle class American, probably just the same as you are. We all have our differences. We all have our own, I definitely have my privileges or unique facets of my upbringing or whatever. We're all different, and yet we're all the same, right? And I'm not kidding myself. I know that if a bunch of federal agents come in and, like, what am I going to do about, I'm one person, right? What am I going to do against that? But what if enough American citizens say enough is enough, and we're not going to let tech billionaires decide our future, and we're not going to let the president keep committing crimes, we're not going to allow the FBI or the Department of Justice to be run by a drunk fool, and we're not going to allow draft dodgers to decide whether or not we go to war. We're not going to allow any of this bullshit, right? And we're not going to allow you to come into our city and kidnap us or kill us for exercising our First or Second or any amendment rights. If enough Americans say, and by the way, this is fully unloaded, Smith & Wesson Model 686, if enough Americans have the means at their disposal to protect themselves, I'm telling you, folks, some of these goons, some of these federal or state or any of these agents, the only language that they respond to is power. And the only language that they know how to use is violence. So the only antidote to a broken system that benefits the few and punishes the many hard-working Americans, is to be able to defend yourself and to be able to say enough is enough. So by myself, I'm not going to be able to do anything. But if you today start doing some researching, start going to your local gun range, or take some classes, some online, maybe some in person, and you know how to protect yourself or protect your family or protect your loved ones. If enough of us, when the next time the government tries to infringe upon our rights, right? Remember, how was our country founded? Right? I'm not going to go into that right now, but you should know how our country was founded. And you should know that a well-armed militia is necessary if the government tries to act unjustly and tyrannical, right? So that's in our Constitution. So the next time that our government tries to do something to us unfairly, unjustly, or if it just keeps getting worse and worse, at some point we have to take to the streets, we have to protest, we have to stand up, and we have to eliminate the people who are acting not in our interest. And we need to change the system, if need be. Right? That's the only way forward. That's where the world is currently heading. And at some point, I'll make a separate video on concealed carry, firearms, guns as a hobby. But for now, I just want to go over what we've covered and how they all relate. So, we have global state of affairs, United States on a precipice, and concealed carry. And we have several different things we talked about for each of those big themes. AI and billionaires and the global economy and war changing and ICE and no checks and balances and the ultra wealthy parasites, these are all related and they are all stacked up against the average, everyday, hardworking person. The only way to change this is to stop doom scrolling, is to arm yourself, is to be ready to, if need be, exercise violence back in the face of tyranny. But for the most part, let's try to be peaceful about it, yeah? Let's go out there and say enough is enough, contact your state representatives. You should be writing to your state representative at least once a year, if not much, much more. And you should be reaching out to them and talking about the issues that matter to you, talking about how you don't want this AI data center built in your backyard polluting all your water, or whatever cause you care about personally. And we should be more involved politically. And when that doesn't work, if the state cracks down on us for whatever reason and infringes upon our rights, then enough Americans who know how to protect themselves and uphold the Constitution and their rights is the only way forward. I mean, how else? If violence is the only language that some people understand, you have to be ready. And the great thing is that most likely that won't be needed. Just the knowledge that Americans are tired and have had enough will put fear into those who seek to just take away our future, the future of our kids. So, I covered a lot today. A lot of it was rambling. I'll make some other videos on some topics at some point. Please leave a comment if there's a particular subject you think is you would like me to talk about. Or leave a comment if you think I should stop talking and that I ramble too much. Whatever. Whatever your opinion is, I love to hear it. And I hope you have a safe rest of your day, and I'll catch you later.